Hey everybody, it's Shane, and I'm back with another unboxing and review of the Flight Sim Factory A320 Pro Series. This is a throttle mod for the Honeycomb Bravo. You may have already seen my video about the 7X7-3. I loved it so much that I wanted to get the Airbus one for my ToLiss A321. So we'll go through the box, I'll show you what it comes with, and then we'll install it on the Honeycomb, and then I'll show you some stuff that you need to know to make it work right for the ToLiss if you're on X-Plane. I hear that the Phoenix A320s for Microsoft Flight Simulator are a little easier to use with this, but X-Plane being X-Plane and ToLiss being ToLiss, it took a little bit of work. So here's the box. Comes with this cool little thing. You can contact them if you want to. And I've already pulled stuff out of the package because I didn't want to sit here and mess with bags as I was doing this, but it does come fully sealed in bags, every piece, so it won't come loose in a box like this. You can see the plastic at the bottom. So it comes with these to start, and these are some of the detents that you're going to use for your throttle, okay? Or I might have it backwards, kind of like that. There you go. So this is going to be the left throttle, and this will be the right throttle, and this is also speed brakes and your flaps on that side. Comes with a speed brake handle, and it is electric, so when you pull up on it, it will arm your spoilers. Okay, then you got your flap handle, which is also spring-loaded. These are a couple little dummies to put on the stocks that go through there. And then the grand finale is going to be the throttle levers, which are pretty cool. So they have auto throttle disconnect switches, and then they have the little guards, the little unlock levers so that you can go into reverse. And I'll show you how this works in the Bravo later. So this is the right throttle, and then this is the left throttle. Okay, now let's go ahead and install it on the Bravo, and then we'll talk about some stuff. All right, guys, let's talk about installation. So I'm going to start with these plates here first. So we'll do the left-hand side. So it's going to go over like so. And then you're going to press it down into position. Make sure it's nice and snug. Then you can take one of your little dummy made in Canada thingies and stick it on there. And now you're going to take your speed brake lever, and you're going to install it with the ball bearing point facing inboard. And make sure it drops into the detent there. Then I'm going to take this plate and install it on the right hand side. Make sure it pops into place. Okay, install your little stock. Okay. I might actually have these reversed. Maybe you want these on the inside. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Okay. Now we're going to take our flap handle, and then that's going to go with the little part here inboard. And you're going to place it like so until it drops into place. There you go. And now, last but not least, the throttles. So they're going to go with the red buttons facing outboard. Until they click. There you go. And we'll do the right hand side one. Okay. Now they are installed. I'll give you a brief tour of how everything works. All right, so speed brake lever drops into detents, and you can lift up on that, and X-Plane will read this as a button, maybe Flight Sim too. It reads it as a button so you can arm your speed brakes that way. Okay, now the flap handle, you lift up and you move it, and it works very nice. Feel that nice positive click in each detent. Cool. Now, throttle levers. Let me show you how these work. So, That's idle. It clicks. Then you get climb, MCT, and toga. Same on this side. It drops. Now, with these paddles down, it won't go into reverse. But if you lift up, now you can go into reverse. Pretty cool, huh? And then when you go back to forward, drop the paddles down. Now, we will need to talk about some stuff because I initially had a lot of issues getting this to work with the ToLiss A321. So I think what we're gonna do now is go into the sim and I'll show you some of the workarounds that I came up with. All right. All right, guys. So I want to go over some stuff with you now because I had a bit of a learning curve with the ToLiss A320 series and these throttles. So if you're on Microsoft Flight Simulator, I think the Phoenix works a little better with this out the gate. X-Plane makes things a little complicated, or the ToLiss does rather, and the reverse thrust situation here is kind of a difficult situation. So if you're looking at the throttles, you'll see they're currently at the 0 detent, but that's not how they initially started. Let me show you what I mean. So if I go over to this ISCS and I go over to the joystick actions, I did not have that button on, reverse on same axis, and this is what happens when you don't. You see where the throttles are now at? That's the 0, that's the idle detent, forward idle detent on the throttles, but that's not where the ToLiss thinks they're at. And I could not figure this out for the longest time. And the thing with the ToLiss A320 stuff is that no matter what custom curves you put on this, it does not read them. What I mean by that is if I go in here and I go try to mess with these response curves for the throttles, it does not care what you put in there. It does not read this. It reads the physical throttle position, period. So I did not realize that the way that this thing is cut out to put these detents into the Bravo, that's about 10% right there of the max position. 0 is like here, okay? But that's supposed to be reverse thrust. So now where the reverse thrust detent is at is actually 0% throttle movement. So how you fix that is you go over here and you turn on reverse on same axis, okay? Now you determine where your throttle idle position will be. So what I did is I took the throttle and put it into the detent, went down here and read the raw values, right? And then I moved the idle detent position to 0.10. And now that puts the throttles into the 0 detent. And also, these detents for climb, flex, and toga weren't initially there. I had to go in here and manually adjust the climb detent and the MCT detent based on the throttle position raw values, okay? So look, this is flex, and that's climb. That's idle, but you have to adjust the detent locations based on this input here, because where these little detents are at are not exactly where 0 and 100 are, and they don't always line up. So you need to adjust it this way, okay? Now, the other issue that I'm having, or had, and this is kind of a workaround, is the way that the reverse thrust works here is the second that I go into reverse, ToLiss says that that's full reverse, and that's not normally what I like to do. I normally like to go into idle reverse, or I like to have the option of going into idle reverse, and then I like to go to full if I feel like it's necessary. But the way this thing is set up, it goes straight to full. All right, and I guess that's okay. I guess typically when I use reverse thrust, I tend to go into max reverse anyway. But here's the problem. If I want to go back into forward idle, when I move these back up into forward idle, it goes from max reverse straight to forward idle. But in the meantime, the engines will be spooling down and your reverse is closed, but you still have the engines providing thrust. So now you're going to accelerate a little bit when this happens. So I have a workaround here. So let's say I'm flying, okay, and it goes retard, retard. So I go down to 0, right? And then I flip up these bars, and then I go, the immediate next detent would give me max reverse, and that's fine, all right? But what if I want to go to reverse idle, let the engine spool back down before I go and close the thrust reversers? So this is what I did. I went into the controls, and I pushed the Honeycomb throttles all the way down to the very bottom, okay? So on the Honeycomb, there's a magic detent at the very bottom. It acts like a button click, right? So I put number 5 and number 6 buttons, which is going to the very bottom of the stick, or to the throttles, as toggle reverse thrust for 1 and 2. Now let me show you what that has the effect of doing, okay? So let's say we're in max reverse, okay? And now I'm ready to come out of reverse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the throttles all the way down, and that toggles the reverses closed and puts me back into forward idle. But if I do it again very quickly, now it puts me in reverse idle. So how it's going to work is like this, right? I'm going to flare, and it goes retard. So I go down, idle, and then when I'm wheels in the ground, I go max reverse. Okay, we're decelerating, and now I want to go to reverse idle. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly take the throttles and go boom, boom. So what that does is it toggles the thrust reversers off and then back to on, but now the ToLiss thinks we're at reverse idle. So now the engines will spool down, but the reversers stay extended. Once the engines spool down to idle, then I can just go back to forward idle, and that's it. It's a little workaround, it's a little hanky, but this is what I would have to do because the ToLiss just does not, it refuses to read throttle curves, and the logic of the software on the ToLiss doesn't immediately go to reverse idle. It goes to max reverse, but I want to be able to have reverse idle if I want. So if I just want reverse idle from the get-go, this is what I would have to do. So I'm at climb, it says retard, I go to 0. Then when it goes to, when I touch down, and if I don't want max reverse, I'd have to do this. So basically I have to tap it down twice, right? And that will go into reverse idle. And then I decelerate, and then when I'm ready, back to forward idle. There you go. So that's what I learned with this kit and the ToLiss. Now again, if you're on Microsoft Flight Simulator and the Phoenix, it may work things differently. I hear it works a little bit better for them, but I'm just telling you how it works for me. Last thing you'll need to keep in mind is that these detents here don't always quite line up. So I had to make custom curves for the speed brakes and the flaps. See, they work fine now, but initially they weren't lining up this way. So to do that, you're going to go into here and you'll find the curve you need. So speed brakes, and I had to add some custom points. You may want to screenshot this for yourself if you're setting this up. And this caused them to line up a lot better with the detents in the ToLiss. So that's speed brakes, and then flaps. Same thing here. Okay, I had to put in custom curves for each physical position on the detents on the Bravo and this Flight Sim Factory, the way the detents are cut, and put manual detents. Again, take a look at this flap axis. This might work for you, to get them to actually go into the detents that are on the ToLiss. And then last thing is, if you lift this button up, it arms the speed brakes, right? But if you move the speed brake handle, it disarms it. So just remember to push that back down. If you go back to retract, you can extend it again, because it doesn't, it's like it's not an up and down switch, it's just a toggle. So you have to cycle it twice to make one full movement. It's just the way that the Bravo is set up. It's kind of like the thrust reverse detent thing at the bottom. Anyway, I've talked long enough. Hopefully this helps you guys, but I got it working now and I'm really happy with it. These things feel great in the hand. All the buttons work. I got auto throttle disconnect, I got flaps. I have speed brake armed. And I have a workaround for reverse thrust. Hope you found this video useful. I look forward to hopefully getting my hands on some more Flight Sim Factory stuff in the future, and I'd like to review that for you guys as well. Catch you on the next one.